What year is it?
It was brand new.
No. What year is it?
1995, remember?
You got some ID?
Tonight we saw Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. Connor, what's the plot of Jumanji?
Jumanji is about 4 kids named Fridge, Bethany, Tiffany, and Schmeck, and they get detention for various reasons, and then they end up finding a video game. They end up inside this video game where they become Kevin Hart, The Rock, Jack Black, and random girl, and they travel through the game, meeting various things. Eventually, a MacGuffin comes to be, and a boss who is only explained to be the boss guy, evil man. And basically, they have to grow as people through gaining confidence and teaming up and learning the meaning of life, and learning to defy their fears, or learning to be less of a big ass bitch, learning to appreciate their friends more, whatever. And they get the MacGuffin, they make the magic happen, and they are good to go. So Aidan, what did you think of Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle?
It was fine. It was, pretty much, I guess, what you'd expect. It wasn't really funny. I thought it was going to be more of a comedy thing. But it was kind of like an action-adventure movie with some, like, comedy.
It's kind of what the first Jumanji was.
Yeah. But, Kevin Hart and Jack Black kind of made me
And
think
The Rock.
there'd be
The
some
Rock's
dumbass
only
shit.
in comedies, pretty much. I guess he has a movie here or there that's a little more serious, but
Fast
generally,
and Furious.
I mean, even that, he's kind of the comic relief character, almost.
But anyway,
Whatever.
that doesn't matter. Yeah, it was fine. It was whatever. I didn't hate it. Some of the action was kind of okay, but a lot of it was just kind of like.
They ran.
Hmm?
It's kind of just like they run.
Pretty much. I thought the thing that I didn't like about the movie was that they felt the need to go out of their way to explain every single thing,
Oh yeah.
because old people and Chinese people might.
I don't think Chinese people are seeing this movie. I think it's old people and kids.
But they're like, this is a video game. We're watching a cutscene. A cutscene is like a small movie that plays in front of some video games. This is a life counter. You have 3 lives, and if you fail, you get a game over. And there was that one scene, like right at the start of the movie, where the guy's like, to win the game, you have to put the crystal in and say Jumanji. To do the game, you have to put he literally repeats it, like they try to pass it off as a gag, but he just repeats it over and over again. The character's like, so to win the game, we have to put the crystal in and yell Jumanji like 1,000 times in one scene, so that even the most brain-dead, retarded audience members could understand the plot of this movie. And they did that with every major plot point. Every major plot point repeated 1,000 times. Everything needed to be explained. Every time something was like from a video game, it would have to be explained. They're like, player 1 is the person who has the controller in the player 1 slot. Video games are games that you play on a television. Like every single fucking element of video games had to be explained to the elderly, and it was obnoxious. But in that, it was fine. So Connor, what do you think of Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle?
It was okay. I mean, it was kind of like what you would expect. This was definitely a movie made for kids. If I was like 12, I would have eaten this shit up. I mean, obviously they explain a lot because, as you know, there's parts where it's like, this is a cutscene. But the only cutscene we saw in the movie was just exposition, and it was one time. So really they're like, oh, here's our explanation on why we're literally just forcing this exposition on you in 1 minute segment. But in reality, you know, it's a kid's movie. It has the cheap moral of like, you know, doesn't really matter who you are, believe in yourself, don't be a fucking asshole, that and that. I mean, the story as it went was pretty relatively simple, but it was decent. You know, I thought it would just be incredibly cringy. There were their cringy moments, but and I didn't know how well video games would transfer into the Jumanji story, but it was all right for the most part.
I'm not sure how old the kids are supposed to be, because he said he liked the girls since 7th grade, so that means they're in at least 8th grade.
I think they're supposed to probably be like 16.
But they all looked like they were like 17, 18, but then the Brittany didn't know what a penis was, or that it could get hard.
Well, and none of them drank alcohol, which is hard to believe.
Well, the black guy did, 'cause
no, the black guy did there, but none of them drank it previously. Then they all had sips and like,
no, the black guy
gross,
implied
kids.
that he had done it before.
Yeah.
The other 3 said they did.
But he was kind of appeared to be a high school football player, so I'd assume they were at some point in high school.
Yeah, but
You don't usually have like a varsity jacket running around making a big deal about about football in junior high.
and then there was that weird scene.
That's what I was about to talk about, actually. But, you know, there were like 3 or 4 funny jokes in the movie. I think the funniest parts about it were really just like the characters being tossed into the other bodies. I mean, you have the hot girl as Jack Black, the weak kid is Kevin, or is The Rock. You got the nerdy girl as the hot chick, and you got the strong black dude as Kevin Hart, and it's like you're kind of playing your opposite role, like, you know, ripped football guy is Kevin Hart, so it's like you know, he's got to be more humble or something, and the kid, the nerdy Jewish kid being The Rock, kind of teaches him how to be more confident type of deal. But there were some funny moments in there. You know, Jack Black was surprisingly good in the movie. You don't really see Jack Black in anything anymore. And that's because he pretty much started shit for the entire end of the early 2000s. Or pre-2010s, whatever the fuck, the early 2000s. He started mostly as, he had some shit fucking movies and it tanked his career. But, you know, everybody was relatively good in the movie. The plot was relatively simple. There were some drinking jokes, some dick and pee-pee jokes, and it was a relatively lighthearted movie. Nothing was too heavy, like people weren't just like dying and shit. And everything kind of had a happy ending and got tied up in a nice bow. Of course, you have the part where they meet up with the guy who's been stuck in Jumanji for 20 years, played by Nick Jonas. One of the Jonas brothers, I think Nick Jonas. But it goes back, he goes and he's like, I was back in the past, and I actually named my daughter Bethany after you because you gave me CPR and got a boner. And then he instantly knew who they were, like he was walking down the street and he sees 4 kids walk there. And somehow the kids stood there and were like, wow, this must be the guy. Well, I guess they were at the house, so it kind of makes sense, but instantly, you know, it's been 20 years, you know, his whole life basically resets. He lived the whole 20 years, but he instantly knew these people he's never seen before, who weren't even born until far after, or until a few years after he was, I guess, brought back to his time period, you know. So it's a pretty amazing thing to see, and the fact that he named his kid after Bethany is kind of almost creepy. Well, not almost creepy, it's creepy because he had a hard-on for an underage girl, and he said, I have such a hard-on for this underage girl who saved me through CPR.
Well, he was underage.
And then became a guy, not really, because he was like 40 at the time. Then time got reversed for him. He lived 40 years. That, by definition, makes him 40. Then he lived another 20 years. That would make him 60. So really, it's a 60-year-old man that has a hard-on for a 16-year-old. In in many ways, in technical ways. Almost 60, 50 something. Stop ripping this blanket apart. This is fucking stupid. But, you know, whatever. A lot of the humor was just like, look at my big old dick. It's like junior high humor. It's a movie made for junior high kids. It's around the same idea of like Rush Hour and shit type comedy movie. And it's okay. It's not a terrible way to spend your 2 hours. I thought it'd be a lot cringier, especially since Sony Pictures made it. And it looked completely shitty in the trailers, but it was just okay. I mean, I think my favorite part of the movie is probably The Rock. I don't know what's with The Rock. He's not that great of an actor. I just like his charisma, so usually when The Rock's in it, he's an enjoyable actor to watch. And, you know, everybody had their decent performances. No one really was incredibly cringy or bad at acting. So Aidan, would you recommend this movie?
No. Not really. I mean, it's fine. It's whatever. You can watch it if you're interested, but I wouldn't be like, go see Jumanji, go, you know? It's fine. It's fine. It's good. Connor, would you recommend Jumanji?
Yeah, I mean, like Aidan said, if it sounds like something you're interested in, it's not like some hidden gem, because the movie's gonna flop, because it's a Sony Pictures movie and it's Jumanji in 2017. It's not something I'd go out of my way to see, unless, like, for some reason, you're like, yeah, Jumanji. Or I guess if you're like a kid, or you're trying to bring your kid to a movie or something, Jumanji, relatively decent choice. So.